Welcome to Lyme and Beyond with Tanya, where we talk all about Lyme and beyond, because as most of us know, Lyme rarely travels alone. I created this podcast to offer you hope and to remind you that healing is possible because I healed from my own 13-year journey. Although it was exhausting physically, emotionally, and financially, it truly was a blessing as it reshaped my mind, body, and soul. In this space, we share raw and real conversations with those who have made it to the other side, along with breaking down different topics and approaches with practitioners. My goal is to make you feel less alone, more empowered, and confident in being your own advocate. So, thank you so much for tuning in today. And if you're looking for more tips and resources, I share everything I learned along my journey on my Lyme and Beyond with Tanya Facebook page. And I will announce now, probably a little prematurely, but I am working on creating a website as well. So I can have all the information, all the resources, all the videos I've made over the years, all in one place for you to be able to go there to find the resources that may help you. So today is a special episode because it marks my 100th episode. I'm so grateful for my listeners and supporters, but most of all, my incredible guests. Thank you for sharing your journey with me and trusting me with it. Without you, there wouldn't be a show. So, this is truly one of those journeys that we never wished we were on. But together, we can build a village of hope, friendship, and understanding. So, because it's my 100th episode, I thought I would do something a little bit differently. So, usually I'm the one asking the questions, but today I'm going to turn the tables. I've invited one of my prior guests, who is also one of my dear friends now, which I would not have had it not been for my Lyme journey. Anyways, I reached out to him, and of course, he obliged in saying he would be happy to interview me for my 100th episode because I want to share my full personal journey with you. Not that mine is any worse or any easier than anybody else's, but I think that it's been a while since I've shared any parts of my journey. And so I'm going to try to dive into most all of it today. I know I ask my guests to cram in years of their journey into a small window. And so now I'm going to test how easy or how hard that is. So be sure to stay tuned till the end because my guest and I are going to share some of our Lyme Brain moments. I know many of us have these throughout our journey, and when we're going through them, it's kind of terrifying. But we both can look back on our journeys and laugh about them because laughter is medicine, right? We don't get to laugh a lot during this journey. So hopefully you will get some laughter out of this when we share those things with you at the end of the show. So my guest today is Dawn, and he was a prior guest sharing his personal Lyme journey. If you would like to seek out his story, you can search his name in my podcast, or you can scroll back to May 7th of 2025, where you will find his journey. So, Dawn, I'm so excited for this episode. It's going to be so much fun. Flipping the tables, right? I'm a little nervous, actually. So, hopefully you don't catch me too off guard, right? I'm trying to think back on all these years of my journey and everything I went through. And I'm sure I'm going to miss a lot of pieces, but hopefully I'll get the important parts out. So, welcome to the show again. And thank you so much for doing this.
You're welcome. I'm happy to do it.
I
It's all
appreciate
about
you.
furthering the awareness, and you do it better than anybody I know. And thank you for what you do. You helped a lot
Thank
of
you.
people, including myself. And yeah, I'm
Thank you. I
glad to be
appreciate that.
here.
I
Oh, you're
appreciate
welcome.
that.
You're so welcome.
All right. So, I guess the table's yours. Is that what we call it in showbiz?
Yeah, yeah, it can be known as that. So I guess just let's kind of start from the early days. Who was Tanya before Lyme disease?
Wow. I don't know if anybody's ever asked me that because it's always about me sharing my journey, right? But I had a life before Lyme. I had dreams and aspirations, and they all went by the wayside because of Lyme. So I'm loving that I get to share this part. So I was healthy, active, top of my career, loving life. Life was amazing. I definitely was a workaholic. Um, I
I know the
volunteered a
feeling.
lot. What'd you say?
Said I know the feeling.
Right. I know you do. And oftentimes I think that that's kind of what runs our body down, right? And shuts down our immune system is because we go, 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 go. Um, so just life was great. I talk a lot during my journey about blocked traumas and emotional traumas that we go through throughout our life. And I had an amazing childhood. I'm grateful for my parents, my family. They did divorce, I want to say maybe when I was 12, um, but it was a great childhood. And one piece that I remember was in kindergarten was my teacher. His name was Fred, Mr. Fred. And I'll never forget, he told us we get to have a dress up day. And you're going to dress up what you want to be when you grow up. And I dressed up as a mom because I've always wanted to be a mom, even at a young age like that. Not sure why. I guess it was just that motherly instinct in me. And so, of course, when I grew up, I wanted to have children. And I didn't get married till I was 30. And my husband, my ex husband, my whatever I call him at the time, right? He had two young children. And I asked him very seriously, are you okay with having a third child? Because this is very important to me. Not that I wouldn't love his children as my own, but I wanted my own. And so, of course, he said, absolutely. So we got married. I got pregnant and I lost my baby in utero at 6 months.
Mm.
And during this time, I made it through that first trimester, I guess, Mark, where everything is fine and you're good. You don't need to come back and see us for a while. And my body continued to believe it was still pregnant because I literally looked 6 months pregnant.
Wow.
So I lost my child and I was so far along, I actually had to go through surgery to have it removed. And from there, I ended up with endometriosis. And I know a lot of women deal with this. I don't know if it's at the time, Lyme was not in my body at all. But I don't know if there's a correlation between Lyme and endometriosis, but I dealt with endometriosis, PCOS, which is polycystic ovarian syndrome. Anyways, long story short, over, I believe it was 2 years, I had 5 surgeries to try to get rid of the endometriosis because it was very painful. And it just kept coming back, full speed. And I had been missing a lot of work and it wasn't working. And so I made the hard decision of having a hysterectomy at a very young age, especially for somebody who really wanted children. And so I think that that played a big role in eventually the demise of my divorce. And so that was some blocked trauma that I really had to work through. Um, anyways, I guess that's kind of my story of before Lyme. And I just, I share it because I want people to know that I too had dreams before I got sick. I had I had worked a full-time job, same company, 17 years. I had, I don't know, I want to say probably 3 years prior opened up my own legal business. And, now I'm single after my divorce. I started hosting exchange students. And that was when it really hit me that it doesn't matter if I'm single or not, I can still be a mom. And I was hoping to adopt a child. I was also hoping to leave my full time job and turn my part time legal business into full time. So, those were some of my dreams and plans for my future until Lyme came.
Mm. Yep. The sneaky little buggers.
Right? Right?
Yeah.
I hear it a lot, and I'm sure you do too, Dawn, about what Lyme steals from us and how many years,
People have no idea. Like they
Yeah.
have no earthly idea. Like
Yeah.
don't get me started.
That's a whole other episode.
Like they have no clue. I mean, it's
Yeah.
unless you get it, you
You
ain't gonna
don't get
get it.
it. You don't get it. Yeah, that's our phrase, right?
Yeah. I'm
So
sorry. I
yeah.
didn't go off on it. I will go off on a tangent. I will,
and
but I
and
won't.
I want you to.
No, it's okay. I'll try to restrain myself. Do you remember getting bit? Did you have? I mean, do you remember pulling a tick off of you?
Yes and no. So I had mentioned I had gone through a divorce and I had purchased another new home. And it was in 2004. I was landscaping my front yard. So I had spent the whole weekend out there tearing things up, getting dirty, digging in the dirt, all the stuff. It was a Sunday. And I came in, took a shower, went to bed. And all night long, I was kept waking myself up, itching down on my ankle. And so when I got out of bed that morning, I thought, okay, why is my ankle itching? And so I looked at my ankle and I had a bullseye rash. No
I don't
tick.
think I ever knew that you had the bullseye. I don't think I ever knew
Yes.
that.
See, because I don't ever share my full story very often. So this is fun. You're going to learn so much about me, right?
I probably just don't remember you saying it.
And so I threw all my covers off my bed. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's a spider in my bed because I was not educated. I had no idea what a bullseye rash was. Um, so I took a shower and went to work. And by the time that few hours rolled around, there was so much pain on my ankle that I could hardly walk. And I thought, this is really weird. So I called my primary care doctor, who had been my doctor for, I don't know, 15 years. You know, I really trusted him. We had a great relationship. I called him up. I said, I have this bite from a spider. It's like a bullseye. I can hardly walk. Must have happened yesterday in the yard. He told me to immediately come into his office. And I thought, okay. So we get in there and he asked me all these random questions, which are not random now, knowing what we know. But it was, do you feel okay? Do you feel like you have the flu? Do you have a headache? Anything? I said, no. I said, I only called you because it really hurts. Like it hurts to put pressure on my foot. So he never mentioned a tick bite, Lyme, or anything.
Mm.
What he did say is if in the next couple of weeks anything weird happens to you, if you get sick or just any weird random symptoms, you need to call me right away. And I thought, well, that's really weird, but okay. So I remember him giving me a pain shot. And then I went back to work and went about not only my day, my life. So, hindsight, we know now, right? He was probably scared to mention that it was because many doctors get in trouble for treating Lyme disease, but we didn't know that. And because I was uneducated, I didn't know what a bullseye rash was. And yeah, I was one of the lucky ones who got it.
Yeah. You know, Klinghardt says if you get the bullseye, it was already in your body. I don't know how accurate that is, but that's what he believes. So,
I've heard that. I've heard that. I do know that if you have the bullseye, you 100% have been infected.
yeah,
So
no doubt.
that, little did we know at the time, right? That what we know now. I mean, I
Yeah.
truly thought I had heard of ticks, but I truly thought it was something dogs got because I remember my parents, treating our dogs with flea stuff for flea and ticks for Lyme disease. So I'd heard about it, but again, I didn't know it was a human thing. Embarrassing to admit, but it was the truth.
Yeah. I knew. I've been bitten so many times throughout my life. I just didn't think it would, you know,
If the first one didn't affect you, why would the other ones, right?
yeah, the hundreds of times I've been bitten. I mean, I don't know, but it could have always been in my system because I got the bullseye. So
You did? See, and I'm
Yeah.
sure you shared that on my story with me. The things we
Yeah.
don't remember.
I know the feeling. You're all good. So that's when and how it all started, obviously.
Um, Little did I know. Yes. So that was 2004 and went about my life. I had started my own legal business. So I literally was working 7 days a week, 12, 14-hour days, freshly divorced. Why not just dive into work? Um, and it was 4 years later. It was 2008 until I had my very first symptom.
Which was,
Um, Elbow pain in one of my elbows. And I'm left handed. And so it was my right elbow. And I noticed it mostly when I was trying to open my sliding glass door at home. There was a pain just right on the side of my bone. And it was so painful. I thought, this is really weird. And so it got so bad that I finally went to the doctor. They did an MRI and they came back and told me it's probably tennis elbow. And I thought, of course, me, I don't play tennis. Um, but it also was weird because I'm not one of those, is it called ambidextrous, where you can use both your hands?
Mhm.
I pretty much use my left hand for everything, and it was my right elbow. So I thought that that was really weird. But they said it was tennis elbow. Just, I don't even recall what they told me to do at the time, but I was fine. Nothing was wrong. That was truly kind of where my rabbit hole started, was that elbow. It eventually went to my other elbow. And so eventually at the gym, every morning I went to, I wasn't doing any type of weightlifting or resistance training because a lot of my body parts just hurt. And so I just did cardio. And this went on for, multiple years of going to different doctors. I have pain. I have these random things. One day, this will hurt. One day that will hurt. And then this will be fine. And so one day I realized that I wasn't even going to the gym because I would come home from work and I was so exhausted that I would fall asleep on the couch. I would wake up. I would find a bite of something to eat in the refrigerator and go to bed and literally wake up to my alarm clock just in time to start my day over again. And I didn't know what was wrong with me. Nobody could give me any answers. It was really crazy. Um, I seeked out many different practitioners. I traveled, I went to different doctors. I did all sorts of testing, blood tests. I saw specialists. I actually went to a clinic that was, can't remember exactly what it was called, but fibromyalgia was in the name of this clinic, like Clinic of Fibromyalgia or something. I don't know. And I went into this doctor and he says, "You have fibromyalgia." And I'm like, "Thank you. I knew something was wrong with me, right?" Like finally to have somebody believe me. And so he puts me on all these supplements and gonna, start helping my body. I go to the library, I check out all these books on fibromyalgia. Yeah, it kind of sounds like what I have, but I don't know. I don't really know if this is it because a lot of people can live with fibromyalgia. And I felt like I just kept getting worse and worse. And so, this doctor I was seeing for fibromyalgia, he did a whole bunch of lab work and also determined that I had mercury poisoning.
Mm.
And I don't know where I got it from. I mean, I am a seafood lover, but I also did have some silver fillings in my mouth. And so I had to have my fillings removed, which was a scary process in itself, right? Like you're going to
Yeah.
take things out that you put in my mouth. But, anyways, oral health is connected to our whole body health. So, in order to chelate from the mercury, I had to remove the mercury from my mouth. So that was a process in itself. I completed that. Then we started chelation. So chelation took about a year and a half. And, of course, I looked up what is mercury poisoning? What does it do to your body? And it made sense. I'm like, all these symptoms I have, this has got to be what it is. And once I got rid of all the mercury, I wasn't not only better, I was worse. And so much so that I'm forgetting things and no energy, overall body pain. And so I start seeking out other answers. And I did some DNA testing, like something is going on with me besides the mercury poisoning, which is now gone, but besides fibromyalgia, because people can't live like this. And then that's when the diagnosis of you're crazy started coming into play and really setting hard with me. I was told that for a while, but then I got the fibromyalgia diagnosis and the mercury poisoning and the chronic fatigue and the Epstein-Barr and, all these other diagnoses. But then they started telling me that I was crazy. At
Yeah.
that point, I was about, I want to say about 4 years into from the moment my elbow pain started. And I lost hope. So I knew I couldn't live like this. And if the doctors are telling me you have fibromyalgia, but I don't believe that that's it because I can't get any relief from anything, I just keep declining. Am I really crazy? I don't know, right? And so I lost hope. I lost all hope. I thought if nothing's wrong with me, I can't get well and I can't live like this. And that is when I decided I was going to take my life because I couldn't live this way.
Hmm. Yeah. It's heavy.
And my brother passed away when he was 22. So my parents already lost a child. And here I am rationalizing to myself, they'll forgive me. They'll understand because they know that something is wrong with me and I'm in so much pain. I can't do this. I have a younger brother. They'll still have a child. This is not logical thinking, right? But I believe it was a combination of losing all hope and also this Lyme bacteria that's in my brain, right? Making all this neuroinflammation and me do things and say things that a normal person typically wouldn't. So thank God that I made it past that dark spot, right? And I was really ashamed. I was embarrassed that I even had those thoughts. In fact, I didn't tell anybody, not even my parents, for many years because I was ashamed. I never understood how somebody could just quit that way with suicide. It wasn't fair to the other survivors. I get it now. I get how we get to that state. So I made it through, right? So if you're listening right now, listeners, and you're in that dark spot, know that there are answers, there are hope. There is hope. You're not alone. Um, I thank God every day that He got me through that, right? Um, but that was just the first 4 years of my journey.
And so some of the diagnoses that they gave you, to recap, fibromyalgia,
Mercury poisoning,
mercury poisoning.
um, fatty liver,
Mm.
and a lot of these I don't remember when came what, but at the end of the day, all of the diagnoses combined were these: um, Epstein-Barr, chronic fatigue, chronic pain. Um, Gosh, what else am I missing? I never did have mold, thank goodness. I just had a handful of diagnoses, um, and none of them included Lyme. Unfortunately, at that point, right?
Yeah. So what was your moment that like scared you and made you realize you got to become your own advocate?
It was about 6.5 years in. I was going to work. I had court that day. So I'm driving to the courthouse, go in, and the judge, who I've known for years because of my business, asked my name and who I represented. And I didn't know my name. Didn't know my name. And I do remember me just looking at him when I said that and him looking at me like I was playing a joke. After that, to this day, I don't know what took place. I don't know if he said, I don't know what he said, right? Because when you're in court, everything has to be on record. And so, did we not have our case heard that day? I don't know. But nonetheless, I went home and I called my parents. Of course, they were divorced. So, my father was in my home state and my mother was in Oregon. I called them and I said, I'm done. I am going to quit my job, close my business, give my house back. I can't do this. I'm going to die if I don't figure out what's wrong with me. And I knew that they knew I was sick, but they, didn't live near me. And so they didn't see me every day. And so, of course, that was a shock for them and for me. And so I did just that. I phased out of everything and I moved back to my hometown to be closer to my dad, my family that still live there, and just my lifelong friends because I had to do something. I had to take charge of my own health and figure out what was going on. And thank goodness I did because it was shortly after that is really when I became bedridden and ended up having a caregiver come in and help take care of me.
Bless your heart. You know, I look back on my situation, and I never got to like to that the bedridden stuff. I can't imagine like coupling what I was going through mentally with like not being able to get out of bed. Yeah, I mean that would drive anybody to make them want to take their life.
Yeah.
So bless you.
Unfortunately, so many are in that situation, right? It's why we share our voices and share our stories.
Yeah.
Um, my voice is not good today, and I apologize. I've been battling a cold for a while, but I couldn't miss my 100th episode, right?
No, that's a big milestone. Definitely. So
So,
how did you finally get diagnosed?
you know, um, I think it was about 5 years into my journey. I had been on, and this is coming from somebody who didn't take an aspirin for a headache. I just didn't take medications. But I signed up for a pain management clinic because I truly couldn't tolerate the pain. I could not tolerate the pain anymore. And it took me 2 or 3 years to actually be seen. That's how long the wait list was. I mean, who has 2 or 3 years to wait in chronic pain? But nonetheless, so I had been seeing Dr. Tamra through the pain clinic where I was living at the time. And she told me a couple of times that I think you have Lyme disease. And I said, no, they tested me 3 times for it. I don't have it. And I don't think she knew at the time that the testing was not accurate because she actually was battling Lyme disease as well. So she had told me this a couple of different times over a couple of years. And I just thought to myself, no, I've already been down that rabbit hole. It's not that. And I didn't take her seriously.
Mm-hmm.
shame on me, right? I get it how when people get these misdiagnoses and they don't want to believe us when we tell them it might be Lyme. I get it because I was there. I lived that. So after I had, and actually I think it was right before I moved, I had an appointment again with the pain clinic. And mind you, just for the record, I was on fentanyl, the patch, the pain patch, morphine, and Dilaudid all at
Hmm.
the same time. I was a walking drug person. And with those, my pain was only reduced maybe 50%. There were still many days I had to crawl on all fours to go to the bathroom. I physically couldn't walk, on top of just not having the energy to actually walk. I would crawl or slide to the bathroom. And so she told me one last time, Tanya, I really think it's Lyme disease. So I had never told her I got the bullseye rash because I never put them together. So when I moved back to my hometown, I called her doctor that she recommended. And it was several $1,000s to go and see him.
Hmm.
And that didn't include the testing. And I understood at that time that it was IGeneX was the place to get your testing done. So I thought to myself, okay, you've always been really resourceful, right? Even though my brain wasn't working very well. I called IGeneX up. Now, mind you, listeners, this is 2015. This is 16 years ago or 11 years ago, right? Um, I don't think that they do this anymore, but I called them up and I said, is there any way to get a test just by calling you and ordering one because I don't have a doctor? And they said, yes. I paid them. They sent me the test kit. I took it to the hospital. They drew my blood. In fact, the hospital even offered to do what they do, package it up and send it back to IGeneX, which kind of looking back was shocking. But they did that. And so I think it was around $1,500 I paid for my IGeneX test. And I sent it in, and you didn't need to be a doctor to read those results. I mean, they were just lit up all over. I had Lyme disease and I had Bartonella.
Oh, wow.
So,
So you didn't have Babesia?
not at that time.
It popped up later. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is probably always there. They just, you know,
I think so too. Right.
yeah.
So I had the Lyme diagnosis, the Bartonella diagnosis. I can't, it was a long time ago. I can't remember when and where I tested for mold, but I never did deal with mold, which I know a lot of people do. Um, so I get this Lyme diagnosis and I'm thought, this is just crazy. Isn't this what dogs get? So I Google Lyme disease and a couple things popped up.
Easily treated, hard to get.
And actually, you know what? That wasn't what I saw. Maybe it popped up. Don't remember because that's what pops up now, right? Take a week of doxycycline, you're fine. But two things popped up. One, the Lyme Center, which was a nonprofit in my hometown where I was living. And I thought, how is there this big nonprofit that I knew nothing about? Little did I know later on I would actually be running that nonprofit, and I did. But the other thing that popped up was Dr. Rawls.
Oh,
He
yeah.
truly was like the shining light in my darkest days because he offered so much free information and free webinars online. I recall ordering his book, Unlocking Lyme. All I had to pay was shipping. And he just has, he had his own Lyme journey. And he just is such an amazing human being with a big heart, super generous, and of course, just full of amazing information because he's been through this journey.
Mhm.
And so he got me through some of my dark days and some of my confusing days of understanding what I was going through and that I wasn't alone. And so I did. I joined every one of those webinars and just tried to take in all the information that I could. And bless him, all these years later, he's been a multi returning guest on my podcast. I'm so thankful for him for so many reasons. But yeah, so that was how I finally got it. And that was after 3 negative tests through standard labs with my primary that said I didn't have Lyme disease.
So, okay, so once you finally figured out what all was going on in your body, so how did you decide on how to treat it? What did you decide to go with ultimately?
So of course, Google again, right?
Yeah.
Um, I found a very well-known Lyme literate doctor who was in the Bay Area in California, Dr. Raphael Stricker. He's trained many Lyme literate doctors. He actually, prior to me moving back home, was about 45 minutes from where I lived. So now
Okay.
I'm about 3 hours from where he lived, or where his office was. And so I did a consultation with him and I did a consultation out of state with a alternative doctor, you can say, a lot of Chinese medicine practices. So the Dr. Stricker, um, he treated mostly with antibiotics. And I remember him telling me I'd have to get a PICC line. I'm going to be on strong antibiotics for probably a couple of years. And I thought to myself, I don't know if my body would survive this. And so insurance would cover a lot of it at the time. Again, it was pretty close to my home, just a few hours away. I thought this would be the easiest route to go, but my gut wasn't feeling it. And so then I went to the alternative doctor who, first of all, it was $20,000 to walk in the door. That did include a baseline of your first 6 weeks of treatment. Um, I had to temporarily move out of state. But the biggest thing was everything he's sharing with me, I thought he was crazy or I was crazy. I don't know what this man is talking about. But yet his clinic is full of people getting well from not just Lyme, cancer, and all sorts of, illnesses. But it was my first insight to, do we want to call it, Don, thinking outside the box,
Hmm.
right? Alternative treatment, muscle testing, energy healing, just all sorts of crazy things. And at the time, again, it was, $20,000 to start the treatment, but that didn't include a lot of the testing and the follow-up care and anything else that, may arise. And I just thought, I can't afford this. But we made it happen. We made it happen. My family pulled together. We did some fundraisers. I had some gifts from my family members, and we made it happen. And ultimately, that was the decision I went with. So my mom, being the amazing person she is, she flew down and we loaded up my car and we temporarily moved to another state for, I think it was 3 months.
Mm.
And I started my journey.
Wow.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Um, yeah. So once you dug your heels in and you're ready to roll, what did the treatment look like and what did it entail?
Um, so one of the things that really stood out to me in this clinic was he did a dark field analysis where they actually took my blood and put it under a microscope and we could see all of our cells and we could actually see the spirochetes on the TV screen floating around and we would see them go in a cell, we would see them come out of a cell. It was the most mind-blowing thing I recall seeing. And a lot of practitioners do this. I believe it's called dark field analysis or micro something with the microscope. The word I can't say, right? Um, So it started with that, and that was, each week I would go into his office and we would look at my blood to kind of see how it was, and you could see the different cells. Initially they were all kind of jumbled together, and then they would be separating because my body is coming out of what's going on. And so some of the things that we did there was, I believe the first week was all detox. We did a lot of urine tests, some hair tests, some blood tests to test for all sorts of things. And a lot of it was heavy metals.
Right.
I didn't realize that, and I won't even try to say the name. There's many, there's at least a dozen of them that I can think of off the top of my head that we truly can be poisoned by from food, the water that we drink. If you get MRIs and do contrast, and there's so many ways to get infected with these toxicities. And I was loaded with so many of them. Um, so the first week we did a lot of detoxing, and I don't really recall what it looked like other than a whole bunch of IVs. They started me on lymphatic drainage massages. We started on colonics, which didn't know what that was. And I thought, I really have to do something like this? Like, I've never heard of hydrocolon therapy. And I thought, it'll save my life. I'll do it. Right. Um, so did those, lots of high dose vitamin C. We did parasite cleanses. We did foot baths, ionic foot baths. He started me on colloidal silver. Little did I know that would become one of my favorite things to this day.
Same here.
Right.
Yeah.
Um, and then the second week was when things really got real. So the biggest part of my treatment was hyperthermia. And you don't hear about it a lot, but it truly was, this doctor, this clinic, Dr. Fong, by the way, which was at Sierra Integrative Medical Center in Reno, Nevada. He truly saved my life. It's hyperthermia, where you raise your body temperature. And there's talk that you can't really do it in the States. Well, I think what you really can't have done in the States is where, because I've had some prior guests on Dawn that shared some of their stories with hyperthermia, and they put them to sleep, put them
Hmm.
out, and raise their body temperature.
I think they typically do like in Mexico and Germany.
Right,
But
right.
with
So I don't
you,
think
that
it's
didn't
normally
happen.
something that's available in the States because they put you out and all of that.
Yeah.
That was not at all what my version of hyperthermia looked like. So we at the clinic, right? There's a lot of people there. So this was a clinic you went to Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, like a full-time job. You showed up every day. It was outpatient, so you went home at night. But I would show up every day, and they would give me a shot that, well, first of all, during the day, I would, do my different treatments, whether it's colonics or some IV therapies or red light or ozones. I would do my treatment, and then before I left, I would get a shot, and it would raise your body temperature.
Mm.
And the first couple of days, thank goodness, I stayed at the clinic while the doctors and nurses walked me through it, because I don't know how to describe it other than it was the most brutal thing I could ever imagine a human being going through. So we call it the shake and bake. So your body temperature rises. I had I had been dealing with a lot of anxiety. I know, like a lot of us do during our journey. Um, I dealt with a lot of anxiety, and my anxiety, I just had a full-on panic attack, and I started hyperventilating. Thank goodness I was at the clinic. They put oxygen on me. They got me calmed down. But what happens is anything and everything that ever hurt in my body, as far as a toe I stubbed 20 years ago, it will start hurting again when you raise your body temperature. So everything hurts, and you literally shake in convulsions.
Mm.
So my mom found, as gross as it may be, she found a rubber keychain in her purse that every day I put in my mouth to stop me from biting my tongue or breaking my teeth.
Wow.
It truly was brutal. And so after a few days, I eventually, we would go back to the house that we rented, and my mom would take care of me while I went through this shake and bake, as we called it. It would last a couple of hours. We'd have to be very, very concentrate on my temperature because we didn't want it to go over 107 because then it becomes dangerous. And so we got it dialed in pretty well. My mom, got it dialed in pretty well where once I hit about 104.5, within about, and again, these are guesstimate time frames because it was so long ago, within about like 1 minute, it would be to 106. So
Mm.
we knew right then we would have to start bringing it down.
Mm.
So we would put ice packs on my body. I would take some, I don't know if it was ibuprofen or whatever, something to start reducing the fever. I would have to get in a bath, do all this whole protocol just to bring my body temperature down. And then when you bring it down, I mean, I've never ran a marathon in my life, but I could imagine it was like running a 1,000-mile marathon. You're just drained. You're so wiped out. You're so exhausted. And then to even think that I have to nourish my body with some food, go to bed, and wake up and do it all over again tomorrow. And I did this week after week after week for several months. It was brutal.
Mm. It's heavy.
The things we do to get well, right, Dawn? You know
Yeah.
this all too well.
Yeah. You got to get creative.
Yeah, it was for sure a brutal treatment for sure. But
So,
again, he truly saved my life.
yeah. So is that when you realized you were on the right track to getting your life back?
Yes, yes. So when I moved, I'll back up just a moment. When I moved back to my hometown and ended up having a caregiver, that was, I closed my business, quit my job. I had applied for disability, and it literally took me 3 years to get disability.
Mm.
So I was about a year into this treatment, and I'm thinking, I see a lot of improvement. Like I'm nowhere near where I used to be, but I have the right diagnosis. I feel like I'm on the right track with my treatment options, even though they sounded crazy in the beginning. And so this is about 3 years after I'd moved. So it took me 3 years to get disability. So 3 years later, 1 year into treatment, I get my disability. And of course, they had to back pay me for 3 years. And so I thought, okay, I think I'm going to get my life back. Right. And so I took that back pay, not all of it, but I took the majority of it and I put it as a down payment on my starting over home, another home. Right. I lost everything because of this journey. And so I see the light at the end of the tunnel. I'm going to get my life back. And so I purchased another home, my starting over home. So I continued on for 2 more years of treatment, which entailed I did a lot of treatments at home, a lot of shots that I had to give myself at home. I remember that they were teaching us at the clinic when I was there, when you go home, you're going to need to give yourself shots. And I thought, oh, I'll just, get a nurse or somebody to come in and give me a shot. No, you have to do them multiple times a day. So they're going to teach me how to do a shot. And I thought, there is no way I can stick a needle in my body. Like, I can't do it. The fear was so real. And funny because I don't know why I've always thought this, but I assumed that people that go to be a nurse or a phlebotomist or whatever, and they're being taught how to, stick a needle in your arm. Why did I think that they take the needle and stick it in an orange? Like, as like a practice run, right? I just thought that. Did you ever think that, Dawn? Tell me I'm not crazy.
You're not crazy.
So I'm like, where's the orange? I literally said that. And they're like, what are you talking about? No, you just stick it in your arm and we're going. And I thought, like, literally, okay, here we go again, another full on panic attack. I cannot do this. But I did, and I got really good at it. So I'm home doing, these shots, taking a bunch of herbals, doing, continuing with colonics and lymphatic treatments and all the stuff, castor oil packs. And I want to say maybe every 6 to 8 months, I would go back to the clinic and rent an apartment for a week and do more of those hyperthermia treatments, do another dark field analysis kind of to see where I am. And it was just very promising. I was making huge strides and feeling so much better and noticing that a lot of the symptoms were going away, right? At this point, I don't have a caregiver anymore. I can drive. I can go out and do things. I still had a ton of issues looking back, but I was feeling really good. And then, so now I'm 3 years into treatment. And my starting over home, Dawn, I told you I bought?
Yeah, vaguely.
Well, the town burned down.
Oh, the one you just mentioned. Oh,
Yes,
yeah, yeah. I'm
yes,
sorry.
yes. The starting over home that I bought 2 years ago,
Yeah.
this is back then, the whole town burned down. So I left my house in my pajamas with my dog and my purse, and we drove through the fire for 5 hours.
Mm.
Called my family, said my goodbyes. Like there was no way I was making it out alive. And I remember at one point, going through the fire, there was a policeman right there. And I stopped my car and I got out and I grabbed his arms, like kind of by his elbows, and told him, I can't do this. And he says, oh, I know. It's so scary. I said, no, you don't understand. I'm sick and I have Lyme and I have anxiety and there's no way I can drive through this fire anymore. Like I can't do it. And of course, I'm bawling and sweating from the heat. And I remember him vividly putting me back in the car, telling me I can do this. And years later, as part of going through the grieving process, I reached out to him and thanked him. Um, anyway, so I get out of the fire, and again, the whole entire town burned down.
Mm.
So at one point, they told me to get out of my car and run because there's no way that you can drive through this. There's too much congestion. There's only one way in and out. And I thought to myself, my house already burned down. I'm not going to lose my car too, right? And I don't think I'm well enough to run. So get out of there, and now I'm homeless. I'm sick. I'm homeless. And I took a million steps backwards because it was a very traumatic event, obviously. 20 days later, I moved to Idaho. Best thing that ever happened. So, moved to Idaho, and I thought, okay, well, here I am. I rented a house. I had to start furnishing it. That's when I learned all about Amazon. I know, and that was in 2018. Can you believe I had never used Amazon? I didn't even know what it was, but it became my best friend. Um, so here I am, and immediately I'm like, okay, what what can I buy or get that can help support my body right now, right? So I got some colloidal silver. I got some cemento. I got, just bought a handful of these tools that I had been using, but of course I didn't remember everything I had. And I had lost all of my injections and stuff that I was doing from the clinic. And so then I had to make a decision on um, what I wanted to do. Like, did I want to pack back up and go to Reno and get treatment again because I knew I had to, right? And then I was so much further away from Nevada than I was back in my hometown. And so, about a month after the fire, my sister passed away. And There we go, more trauma, right? And I think it was just like a random cold that I caught. My body was run down. I was very stressed. I'm living in a state I'd never been to before in a house that has literally nothing but me and my dog. And my sister passes away.
Mm.
So when I caught that cold or flu or whatever it was, I couldn't get rid of it and my health declined rapidly. And I thought, okay, this Lyme is back and it is rearing its ugly head hard. So I Googled Lyme doctors near me. I actually found a clinic um, that was right here in Boise, Idaho. And I went and did a consultation with her. And oh my gosh, her clinic was fabulous. She had all sorts of IV therapies to offer. She did ozone, lots of modalities. And I thought, oh, how did I get so lucky to find something, right in my backyard? So I met with her and she was very honest with me. And I'm just so thankful for her because she told me, she says, Tanya, I can tell you right now, I think that you know more about Lyme disease than I do. I don't feel confident in treating you. And I said, I appreciate that. And I do feel pretty confident in being my own advocate. I think I know what to do. I just need your clinic. I need your modalities. So we worked together for, I don't know, maybe 6 months, and I wasn't getting better. I was getting worse. In fact, Don, you had mentioned earlier that you asked if I had had babesia. And
Hmm.
so about this time, so now we're, 6, 8 months after the fire, I started getting really dizzy. I couldn't walk down the hallway. I had to hold on to walls or the counter. I was so dizzy. I was actually throwing up, being sick to my stomach. That was a new symptom for me that I had never experienced. And then I started waking up in the middle of the night, not being able to breathe.
Babesia.
Right. But do you think I knew that?
No, you wouldn't.
No. So I fell into the trap, you guys. We all do it, right? I fell into the Western medicine trap. Went to a local primary doctor here. They did a sleep study on me and they said that they said that I had sleep apnea. Okay, that makes sense, right? So they send me home with this sleep apnea machine, and what a nightmare, by the way. Bless those people that have to use them. But I did. I stuck it out because it's a scary feeling to wake up in the middle of the night and what seems like minutes you can't breathe is probably literally seconds, but it's scary.
Not
And
to
so,
detract,
yeah,
but since I've been tested or whatever, I mean, the Babesia doesn't show up anymore. But I bought one of these Aura rings, and it'll tell your body temperature at night. It'll tell you how your breathing is. So if there's anybody out there suffering from Babesia and you want to kind of keep a better track on it, these things are awesome.
I
Uh,
love that.
but it can
Yes,
also, if you have health anxiety, you might, it could affect
we
that.
could overanalyze things, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
but it's
no,
been
we had
really
talked about that and you were telling me about that not long ago. Is it AURA?
OURA. Yeah, I mean they're a little expensive, but to me it's worth it. I mean, it tracks your sleep to a T. Like if you wake up, if you're moving, it'll track your REM, it'll track your deep sleep.
I love that. I have, one of the smart watches that tracks all that, but there's a lot of talk about the Wi-Fi and all that stuff. So
Mm.
the
Yeah,
Aura. Okay, listeners, as always, I will put the information to this ring Dawn just shared with us in the description of this episode if you want to check it out. Thanks, Dawn. We
you're
we need
welcome.
all the tips and tools that we can get.
Yeah, totally.
Um, so I'm wearing this CPAP machine, which by the way was a nightmare. Um, and I did it for about, I don't know, 3 or 4 months. And that was during the transition that I knew I had to find another clinic to treat at because I wasn't getting well. Well, that was when I found another local practitioner that truly does the kinesiology, the muscle testing. And OMG, it's my favorite thing. But that is how I discovered I had babesia. So it all made sense. The dizziness, the not breathing, the air hunger, and also that I couldn't get better doing the things at this other clinic, right? Because I
Mhm.
wasn't addressing the
Babesia.
appropriate co-infection. So, I mean, gosh, that was, I don't even know what year, but again, I got bit in '04. So it took that many years for my body to even be symptomatic from babesia. It's just so wild how all of this is. But anyway, so now I can get rid of the CPAP, right? I don't have sleep apnea. So just about the time I get rid of the CPAP machine, I get a notification from them. My machine's been recalled. It may cause cancer. And I
Of
thought,
course.
great. We'll talk about that more in the story, Dawn. So, anyways, quit that. I see this practitioner for the next 3 years. So I did 3 more years of treatment, a total of 6 years of treatment. Didn't really have to do a lot of use a lot of tools, right? Like I didn't have to do. I wasn't doing hyperthermia anymore. I was mostly supporting it with herbals and supplements. I was doing red light therapy, the ionic foot bath. Cistus tea became one of my favorite things. Um, what else did I do? Colloidal silver, um, red light, biomat,
Yeah, you did that.
colonics, parasite cleanses, kind of just supporting everything. And I eventually reached remission. And that was amazing words to hear, right? I no longer detect Lyme or anything in your body. And that was an incredible feeling.
So it took you 13 years to get to that point. And
Yeah,
I cannot imagine.
13
I
years,
can't.
7 years
Did you ever
undiagnosed.
get on antidepressants or anything, or because
Oh,
I never did
yes.
any of that, and part of me is like maybe I should have during that time because I was so messed up.
Yeah, I'm,
But
I'm glad
did
you
you
brought
find
that
them
up.
beneficial? I mean, I know I'm not crazy about Western medicine at all, but was
Right.
there benefit for you?
I have to say yes, that
Mhm.
it was. When I finally got into the pain management clinic and was on all these narcotics, right, that I didn't want to be.
Mhm.
I truly believe there's a time and place for everything, and we have to be our own judge of that.
Mhm.
But that was also when I got on antidepressants and also on anxiety meds, those
You were on benzos.
SSRIs. Yes, the
Did
benzos.
you have a hard time coming off the benzos?
I did not.
That's great.
I did not.
Great.
That is that is the one thing I do, and I'm so glad. Thanks, Don, for bringing this up because that is the one thing that I do want to talk about for just a second. You and I both, Don, are on the same page. We're all into this holistic health, right?
Yep.
Again, there's a time and place for everything. And if you are struggling and you cannot find the natural remedies to help with your depression, your pain, your anxiety, you do what you need to do, right? If you listen to me all the time, you know that I'm so against pharmaceuticals, but there's a time and place for them, and I
Mhm.
utilize them.
Mhm.
But what I will stress, and I can't stress this hard enough, is that when it comes to anxiety medications, please, please avoid the benzodiazepines.
Yeah. Yeah. They're the bad boys.
They are, they're bad, they're brutal. I've
I mean,
I've followed groups. There's many suicides getting off of them. They're
yeah.
they're a
Yeah.
bad deal. They're
I
bad,
never
bad,
did
bad
them.
business.
I never did them, but I was on a supplement that was very similar in chemical structure, and coming off of that was I can't describe it to you.
It's hard.
So being on benzos and dealing with Lyme, I don't know. It's just not a good idea.
Yeah. But of course, I didn't know at the time, right? Would I have still done it? I don't know. But they got me through and I did take them daily, right? And then as my anxiety was getting better, I would take them as needed. And apparently, I guess you're not even supposed to do that, but I didn't know. And I
You were
did. And
taking the
so,
benzos as needed.
yeah, yeah.
I wonder you never got addicted and had severe withdrawal.
Well, I took them at least 3 or 4 years every day.
And you didn't withdraw?
No, I don't know. I was in like a 6 year long herx, Dawn.
Oh yeah.
I don't know what I was withdrawing from or herxing from, right? I just know that my anxiety was getting less and less and less. And so I started kind of testing it. Okay, I'm not going to take one today. And then I didn't have anxiety. But then not having anxiety and not taking it gave me a little anxiety. So I took one the next day. And
Mhm.
then I would not take one. So I kind of did this and just, I guess that was maybe me weaning myself off without really knowing it. But I am forever thankful that I don't recall any specific tough side effects from getting off of it because they're dangerous, you guys.
Mhm.
They're dangerous.
Mhm.
Opioids are not fabulous. Antidepressants are not fabulous, but do what you need to do and take what you need to take to get you through this phase of your journey. But please, please, please think a million times first before you try the benzos. All right, off my soapbox on that. Sorry, but I'm
It's
glad you brought
okay.
that up because it's very important. We don't know what we don't know, right?
Yeah.
We don't know.
Yeah. So we kind of addressed how the trauma affected your symptoms and all that mess, and then the treatments that you continued with to kind of get it under control. So you reached remission 5 years ago, right?
Yes, February was 5 years ago in 2021. Yeah, so I heard the
How are you
words that
today?
we don't detect Lyme anymore, right? So, well, there's a little bit more piece of my story I need to. My story
Okay.
didn't end there, unfortunately, right? So I reached remission and I thought, finally. But Dawn, I still had brain fog. I still had inflammation. My ankles were still balloons. They had been balloons for over 10 years. I had gut issues. I had food sensitivities. I had noise and light sensitivities. I had some fatigue. Um,
Did you have pain like that felt like Lyme?
I had pain, and my pain was in my lower back and my original starting point, which was my elbows. So most of my body didn't hurt. It was just that lower back and my elbows. But I mean, it was so bad that I still couldn't really walk through the grocery store for an hour or through the mall. I had to ride in one of those carts, and I was still on pain medication. And so I thought, okay, I need to find a way to kind of wean off of this. And this is my new life. And I was okay with that. I knew my name, I could drive. I thought this is as good as it gets. And the one thing that, oh, and I was on prescription sleep meds during this journey as well. So prior to getting sick, I mean, I could have slept standing up. I had no problem sleeping. I was one of those, my head hits the pillow and I am out. And sleep was a big struggle during my journey. And so I wanted to get off of my sleep medication because they kept quit working, right? And then every year you have to change to a different one. And so I went to a local doctor here, a brain doctor who does like brain mapping and neurotransmitting stuff. And I went to him to see if I could get some assistance with my sleep and had a fabulous protocol, but unfortunately, that I couldn't afford it. It was several $1,000s. But what he did share with me was a type of phototherapy patch technology. And
Oh yeah, my favorite.
and it changed my life.
Yeah, and I can vouch for you. I can vouch for you on that and back you 100%.
Yeah, it
Same to me.
absolutely gave me my life back. Not only did it rid all my pain, it got rid of my brain fog, my fatigue, my gut issues. I no longer have a fatty liver. Like you name it, I don't have it. I am 100% well. I don't treat. I have zero symptoms, and it's been 5 years.
There's 39s with
But
that.
right, right. So I know I don't ever talk about the phototherapy patches on my podcast, but because it was part of my journey, if you want information on it, I will,
You
of
should talk
course,
about it on
share
every
it.
freaking podcast. Tanya's scared. Tanya is
I
scared
will
that
share
she's going to
it.
sound like a salesman, but let me tell you, she's not. It will help you through your journey. That stuff is amazing. Plug it in every episode, Tanya.
Thank you, Don. I
You're
appreciate
welcome.
that. I just,
I'm gonna be your publicist salesman on this interview. Okay, it's worth
people need
every
to know
penny.
about it. They need to know
Yes,
it's a
they do.
resource and they can choose to use it or not. But yes, it can be life changing. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Um, but so let's back up just one more time again. So I get rid of Lyme. I'm in remission. I'm starting this phototherapy and I find a lump in my breast. And long story, go to get a biopsy, which we don't know what we don't know. We learn so much, right? I have breast cancer. And immediately, Don, where do you think my brain went to?
Bartonella.
The CPAP machine
Oh,
that
yeah.
got recalled because it may cause cancer. And I thought, you've got to be kidding me. So I get rid of Lyme and now I have breast cancer. So I went and met with the surgeon, the oncology team. I had ERPR positive, ductile invasive something. Sorry, I don't remember the exact name. Hindsight, right? Like years later, Bartonella, breast cancer, big correlation. There's lots of studies being done on that right now. So, of course, I don't want to do all the traditional treatments. I'm there's a time and place, but I also learned along this journey, and that's one of the biggest blessings is that I learned so much. I learned how to be my own advocate, my own researcher, and thousands of years ago, centuries ago, we had natural medicine. And, this big pharma medicine, I don't know how many years it's been around, but it hasn't been around as long as the traditional things have been. And you know this, Dawn, right? Like it's so much of what helped us get well. But I did think, I at least probably need to have the tumor removed. And so I meet with the surgeon, and she was supposedly the best in the area. And she actually said to me, if you don't want to do the whole protocol, I don't just do part of my job. And I said, so you don't want to take out my tumor? You just want it to grow in me and kill me? And she finally said, okay, fine, I'll do surgery with the agreement that I would at least meet with the oncologist and talk about the other options and the 10 years worth of um, hormone blockers that they recommend and all that stuff. And so I did. So I had the surgery, had the tumor removed. Um, it it really is such a my journey is kind of such a full circle thing, right? So I had the cancer removed and trying to think what took place next, right? So as of October, so February 21, I was in remission. Um, July 1st of 21 is when I started the phototherapy patches. And I do remember July 4th, 3 days later, July 3rd, 3 days later, all my pain went away. Other than that, it took about 2 or 3 years for all my blood work and everything to become normal. And then October of 21, I became cancer free. And the surgeon said to me that if I didn't do all the protocols they wanted me to do, the cancer would be back in 2 years, and if not 5 for sure. So where am I at? About 4.5 years, Dawn. My Lyme hasn't come back. My cancer hasn't come back. Um, I thank God every day for Him getting me through and guiding me through my journey and giving me the strength to do it, right? And the courage to do it because it's hard. Um, but I'm thriving. I'm well. life is once again amazing. It's very different from the Tanya before Lyme, right? But
But
it's
in the best way. Yeah.
in the best way, in the best way. So it truly it was a journey. It was a long 13-year journey, but it was so worth the battle.
Yeah.
So worth the battle.
So, what tips can you give the listeners that you kind of feel are personally important to healing?
Many, right? So I know I share a lot that I think that there are 6 things that you need to address. Um, Not in any particular order, right? But I believe that we need to kill off these pathogens. Okay, we need to kill off the pathogens. We need to detox our bodies. We need to support our liver, our detox system. We need to address our nervous system. That is such a huge thing. We need to address metal toxicities, parasites, mold. They're oftentimes the missing piece in this journey. We need to work on our blocked traumas, which we talked about, right? And it gets misinterpreted a lot when I say that because people come back and say, I was never abused. I was, had a good childhood. And they think that they don't have any blocked traumas that they need to work on.
We all do.
Right. And just from my story, going all the way back to losing a child, right, in utero, and then going through a fire, and then moving here, and just so many things that are actually
I mean, you can be carrying a
traumas.
mental trauma from a car wreck.
Yes.
It doesn't
Yes.
have to be, anything you
Yes.
buried in your childhood. I mean, anything. So,
Yes. So, working on blocked traumas and working through the emotion side of our journeys. And I like to kind of relate it to going through a grieving process. So you can Google grieving processes. There's a few different ones. They have like a 5-step, a 7, or a 9-step. But going through this journey is like going through a grieving process because we've lost who we were. We've lost friends. We've lost finances. We've lost relationships. We've lost jobs. We've lost so much going through this. It is like a grieving process. And I believe that if you address every one of those things I just mentioned, it is going to what gets you fully well to where getting sick or having a car accident isn't going to take you out of remission because I addressed all of those layers and I've had trauma. I've had deaths in the family. I've had accidents. I've had a lot of things go on since reaching remission, and I'm still in remission. And so I really think it's an important key to staying well is addressing all of those. And with that, Dawn, you were talking about blocked trauma. So I think I read it in one of the books. There's 2 books that I highly recommend reading. Of course, I'll put them in the description of this episode. But The Emotion Code by Dr. Bradley Nelson, and then The Body Keeps the Score by someone that I can't even pronounce it. So I will put the information in the description on those 2 books. I cannot recommend them enough. I believe it was the Emotion Code book where I read this story, and I want to share it with you guys. So there was a gentleman, and of course, I'm probably going to butcher it, right? It was years ago I read it. There was this gentleman who had pain in his hip, and he walked kind of like with a limp, and nobody could ever figure out what was wrong with him. And he was an adult now. And what they discovered was when he was an infant and his mother changed his diapers, She used cloth diapers. And depending on how old you are, back in the day before Pampers came out, there were cloth diapers, and we would use pins to hold the diapers on.
I
And
used to wear those. My mama did that to me.
did you? Okay. Well, we're old, Dawn. No. So the mother obviously accidentally poked her child in the hip bone, which is about where you would put the pin in, multiple times, which is very easy to do. That was his blocked trauma that caused him to have a limp his whole entire life.
Well,
He worked through the blocked traumas and his limp went away. So it's real, you guys. Check out those books. Again, they'll be in the description of this episode. So just so many things to address, and I also get a lot of questions about what do I do to stay in remission? Because many people will live in a bubble, right? You probably hear this, Dawn. Live in a bubble. They don't want to go hiking.
yeah.
If they, have a busy couple days, they need to relax and rest because they don't want to overdo it. And I have zero limitations, zero. And I believe that that is possible for everyone. I do take a little bit of colloidal silver every day. It's one of my favorite things. I actually make my own. I drink a cup of cistus tea every day. It's one of my favorite things. It's also a biofilm buster. And if you drink it regularly, Dr. Klinghardt says ticks do not like you. So I drink it regularly, if only for that. It's antimicrobial. I take it to keep off my cancer, right? Phototherapy patches are my number one go-to. I still do treat parasites a couple times a year. I do a parasite cleanse and then I follow it up with 3 rounds of colonics. I will rotate through sometimes through some gut health things that I use, some ion gut health or some monolaurin, lauricidin, rotate through some things. When I get a cold like I do right now, and thank goodness I haven't had a coughing attack, right? Hopefully I didn't. Let me knock on wood. Um, when I get colds and stuff, I'll do high dose vitamin C again. I'll take 10,000 milligrams of vitamin C every day for a week when I travel or when I get sick. Um, I bounce back from everything. So I just truly have my life back and feel as good as I did in my 20s. So the journey was brutal, but it was worth it. And I learned so much. I learned so much.
So 13 years. So why are you still here in the Lyme community?
I should be out living my life, right? And what do we want to call this, Dawn? Do we want to call this my 100th episode, or do we want to call it my 13-year $1 million journey?
I like 13-year $1 million journey.
Right.
Call it
So
your
yes,
call it your $1 million baby.
$1 million baby. So yes, listeners, I spent $1 million on my 13-year journey. And a lot of it was the first 7 years. I spent $100,000 a year for the first 7 years out of pocket because my insurance wouldn't cover anything because everything was considered investigational because they couldn't find anything wrong with me. So, and then over the next 3 years, right? So much more. The clinic I went to in Reno, I think at the end of the day was about 100,000 I spent there. And then an additional 3 years up in Idaho was probably a couple 100,000. So my $1 million journey. So that's one of the reasons why I do what I do is because this journey shouldn't cost you that much money. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's not cheap, right? It can be expensive. It can extend well beyond our needs, our resources. But when there's a will, there's a way. So that's one of the reasons why. And I'm going to bring up a friend of mine. So she's an AA, right? So AA is a program for addiction, and she has been addiction free for decades, almost 3 decades, and she's very involved in the community. And she speaks and she travels with them and she does all this stuff. And I remember asking her years ago, why do you do this? You're fine. Are you afraid you're going to relapse? And she said, oh, no, not at all. She goes, but if everybody gets well from whatever they're dealing with and they leave the community, who's going to be there to help the next person that needs help?
That's right.
And I thought, gosh, that's really big of you. That makes a lot of sense. But I didn't really get it until you get it, right?
Yeah.
And so I just knew in my heart that I believe I went through this journey. God threw some challenges my way um, to get me where I am so that I can be that empathetic voice and know what it's truly like to go through this journey. And so people need hope. People need resources. People need an ear to listen to.
Yeah.
And there's so much misinformation out there that we need to share what we learned the hard way. And as much as I shout from the rooftops, I still, people don't hear me, right? So it takes a village. And I know, Dawn, that, you yourself are helping in the community and people are reaching out to you from your personal story you shared. Um, we need each other. We need to support each other in this adventure because we get taken advantage of, and that was a vow I made many years ago is that I would never um, charge people to share my time or information, my resources. And so I think it's important to share what we learned.
I
Sharing is
agree.
caring, right?
Yep.
So, and it truly is, my whole life, I've always been a big volunteer person, with whatever local communities. And just volunteering in the Lyme community, doing the things that I do, it's a different feeling you get than, I don't know, helping at the food bank or something, right? Like I feel like it's more powerful, it's more one-on-one. And the feeling I get from being able to help others, I mean, it truly fills my heart and my soul. And that's why I do it. Maybe a little bit for me.
Oh, you're a good one. And I thank you for the weekly show because I think I said this in my podcast last year, but it helped me through some dark days, just hearing those messages of people getting better. So thank you for that.
I appreciate that. And that's
And don't stop.
that's all we do it for, right? That's all
That's
we
right.
do it for.
That's right.
Oh, well, I think I touched on most of my journey. Um, Thanks, Dawn,
You're welcome.
for interviewing me.
Happy to do it.
Hopefully I was half as good as all my guests are.
No, you were awesome.
Um, all right. So are you game to share with the listeners some of our Lyme Brain moments?
Yeah, the ones I can remember.
Right. Right. I know. So many things are I just think we had so many years of so many things. It like overflooded our brains, right? We can't remember everything.
Oh yeah.
Um, but I know that, during our journey, they were certainly not funny. Um, but laughter's medicine. So let's reminisce on a few of them. What's your first one? I'll let you go first.
It was the time that I put toothpaste in my hair thinking it was, hair gel. Mhm.
You did not. I know
Yeah.
you did because you shared it on your podcast.
Yeah.
That I lost that. I think I last laughed for an hour after I heard that.
And then
Dawn.
I didn't realize it until like later when I was just smelling peppermint as I was walking around. So that was a big one. And then just, leaving groceries in the truck and the meat going bad. That's kind of funny as I look back on it.
And expensive, right?
Yeah. And I mean, there was one time where I couldn't remember what year it was. I was like, and I mean, I know that's not funny, but I didn't know what year we were in, you know, and I don't know. It's just crazy what that stuff does to you.
It really is, isn't
Yeah.
it?
How about you?
Oh gosh. So I know one of them is, and again, guys, we're not trying to throw jabs. We did it. We lived these, right? We're laughing at ourselves, but join us
Mhm.
and laugh with us. Um, I remember making coffee, and this was a multiple time ordeal, and I wouldn't put my cup under there. And I'm just sitting there watching my coffee pour onto my counter, just watching it. I knew it wasn't supposed to be doing that, but I didn't have the brain power to realize how to stop it. Put the
Yeah.
coffee mug under.
I've done that. I did the same thing. I know I did.
um, so yeah, like you with the grocery store. I mean, I lived about 5 minutes, if less, from the grocery store. And so I'd go to the grocery store, I'd drive straight home, and I would forget my groceries. So so I'd go in the house, right, do my thing. The next morning, I'd be, looking for my coffee or something I bought at the store, and I think to myself, I know I just bought this. And then we're like, are we going crazy or not? And I thought, I guess it's Lyme Brain, Tanya. You did not buy this at the store because obviously you would have it.
Yeah.
Get in my car to go to work. There's all my groceries. And so, yeah, I mean, all the perishable stuff, right, went bad. I did that multiple times and that got very expensive. Um, Another grocery store time and talking about not knowing what year it was, Dawn. So it was the new year. I had just moved back to my hometown. So this is, um, I don't know, I may have just gotten my diagnosis or just before I got my diagnosis, but I had just moved back to my hometown right before I had to get a caregiver. And I'm at the grocery store and money's tight, right? Like money's tight. So I'm looking at the little labels, on the railing that show which one is the better buy, right? How much, money per ounce or whatever. And I notice on there, of course, I'm going to forget some of the details, but I
Oh boy.
notice on there
Sorry.
the name of a grocery store that was where I used to live. They didn't have that grocery store in my hometown. And
Mm.
I'm looking around and I remember, Tanya, no, you don't live there. Where are you? We just had New Year's. I remember that. So it was a new year. And I didn't know where I was. I didn't know if I had really moved back to my hometown or if I dreamed it. And I literally sat down in the middle of the aisle of the grocery store and just cried. I didn't know what else to do. And one of the workers came up to me, bless him, because he asked me if I was okay and what he could do to help me. And I explained to him what I just said about the tag on the little name on there. And he goes, "Oh, that's our affiliate grocery store." So it was the name, they just didn't have the name of that local store on the tag. So I
Ah,
explained to him that store is in Vacaville where I used to live, and I'm supposed to be in Chico right now. You are in, I mean, he kind of looked at me like I was crazy, but he was very compassionate. And so, yeah, here I am in the middle of the grocery store crying on the floor because I don't know what town I'm in. It was horrible, but we can laugh about it now, right? I mean, truly,
crazy
we
what it
have
does to
to.
your brain.
We have to laugh about those.
Yeah.
Um, and I want to say probably the best outcome of all of my Lyme brain things. So I had mentioned that, throughout these years, I had done some fundraisers with my friends and family, and I had raised some money at a fundraiser, and it was all cash. And I put it in a safekeeping, right? Of course. And so I had to move. So right before I got approved on disability, I literally ran out of money and I had to move from my condo I was renting to a government funded apartment. Never thought I'd be on any type of assistance in my life, but I had no other option. Luckily, it only lasted about 4 or 5 months, and then I was able to buy my starting over home. But so my family's over, they're packing up my stuff to help me move. And I had a little, my best friend years ago bought me a little ceramic jar and it said wedding fund on it. And my brother picked it up to pack it and he opened it up and there's money in there. Dawn, there's like $5,000 cash in there.
Mm.
And he says, Tanya, what is this? And as soon as I saw it, I said, oh, that's the money from the fundraiser. It had been there for months. And here I am struggling financially. And I had this jar of money right there at my fingertips. I had no idea.
Yeah.
And my brother said, he goes, oh my gosh, Tanya, when you pass away, I'm going to make sure I clean your house out. You never know what you might find.
Oh,
But I mean, how crazy is that? Like, I was pinching pennies and there's this money sitting. I mean, Lyme Brain is real, you guys. You know it.
yeah.
You heard it. So I'm sure we're not the only one that have these crazy stories. But we got to find a way to laugh through a lot of things, right? Laugh. If not,
Right.
you're going to cry. And crying is okay. Crying is healthy for you too.
Good for your nervous system.
It is. And our nervous system is so important, right?
Hmm. Big time.
Well, Dawn, we touched on so much, right?
We did.
Did I miss anything?
No, I think you pretty well covered it. Great
Mm.
story.
Well, I appreciate you. It's been a lot of fun.
Sorry for the cameo. Obi had to.
No, I love it. Of course, those that are just listening, they can't see your beautiful cat. Um, no, I'm surprised mine isn't in here. I'm glad she's not. But yes, our fur babies are like our therapists, right?
Yeah, they are. Got me through a lot of hard nights.
They certainly do.
Yeah.
Well, Dawn, this has been fun. I appreciate you joining me for my 100th episode, right? You certainly made it more memorable for me, so I appreciate that.
I'm happy to do it, Tanya. Keep on doing what you're doing. Proud of you.
Thank you, my friend.
Yeah.
Just
Welcome.
proud and thankful and just truly appreciate you and your friendship. And
Back at you.
like I said before, we wouldn't know each other if it wasn't for this journey. So
That's
there
right.
truly are many blessings that
Silver
come from
linings.
this.
Yep.
Yep, yep. All right. So, real quick before we wrap up, I just want to take a moment and say reaching 100 episodes is not something I ever imagined when I started this podcast. In fact, when I started podcasting over 5 years ago, I didn't even know what a podcast was. I just simply knew that I wanted to make people feel less alone and offer them hope. And by others sharing their success stories, I thought that that was a great way to do it. So little did I know how much time and energy goes into doing a podcast, right? Like there's a lot of stress and uncertainties to try to get a released episode every week, which I make sure I do. Every Wednesday, a new episode drops for you new listeners. It's a lot of work, but it's very rewarding as well. So, as much time and energy and money that goes into producing this podcast, it's truly the listeners that leave a review or send me a message that just to share their gratitude. Like you, Dawn, when you first reached out the very first time several years ago, you said my podcast saved your life, right? It got you through the darkest days of your life. And hearing those messages and seeing those reviews from you guys, it's what makes me realize what an impactful resource this is. It truly can be a lifeline for so many. And it's your words of gratitude that keep me doing what I do. So thank you for them and please keep them coming. And if you're listening today and you're in your journey, know that it's just a phase, right? It's not your final destination. You're not alone. We hear you. There's always hope. You're not walking blindsided in this journey, whether you feel that way or not. And with that, thank you so much for being here for my 100th episode of Lyme and Beyond with Tanya. And in case you don't hear the buzzer, Dawn, we made it. I kind of did a goal of let's do a 100-minute episode. And there
We
we
made
are.
it.
Thank you so much. And thank you for tuning in and listening today.
You're welcome. Bye bye, Obi.